Jack Miller sat at the best table in the Oak Room restaurant. The staff had seated him by the window with a view of Boston's twinkling city lights. At 45 years old, Jack was used to this kind of treatment. His dark suit cost more than what many people earned in a month. The watch on his wrist could buy a small car. Jack ran his hand over his neatly trimmed salt and pepper hair and glanced at his phone. 3 new emails had come in during the last 5 minutes. Being the boss of Horizon Technologies meant he never truly stopped working. "Sir, would you like to see our wine list?" asked the hostess. "Yes, and I'm expecting 4 guests. They should be here shortly," Jack replied, without looking up from his phone. The hostess nodded and walked away. Jack returned to his emails. His company was worth billions now, but it hadn't always been that way. He had started Horizon Technologies in his garage 20 years ago. Now he employed over 5,000 people around the world. His software helped companies work faster and better. Every major business used his products. Jack checked the time again. His dinner guests were other rich people who might want to invest more money in his newest project. These business dinners were all the same. Fancy food, expensive wine, and lots of talk about money. Jack was good at these meetings, but sometimes he felt empty afterward. All that money, and for what? He had no wife, no kids, and few real friends. Just a big house he rarely saw and more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. The restaurant buzzed with activity around him. Men in expensive suits and women in designer dresses filled the tables. Soft music played. The smell of delicious food floated through the air. This place charged $50 just for a small salad. Jack didn't even look at prices anymore. Money had stopped being real to him long ago. His phone buzzed. His assistant texted that his guests were running 15 minutes late due to traffic. Jack sighed and put down his phone. He might as well order a drink while waiting. He looked around for a server. That's when he saw her. A woman with light brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail was serving a table across the room. She wore the same black uniform as the other servers, but something about her made Jack stare. She looked to be in her mid-40s like him. She had laugh lines around her eyes, but her face showed signs of stress too. As she carefully placed plates in front of customers, Jack noticed she had a small limp. When she turned slightly, her profile suddenly struck him like a bolt of lightning. "Laura?" he whispered to himself. Laura Bennett. Jack's mind raced back 27 years to Westfield High School. Laura Bennett had been his best friend all through school. They had met in 9th grade when she defended him against some bullies. From that day on, they were inseparable. Laura was smart, kind, and always stood up for what was right. She had big dreams of becoming a teacher. She wanted to help kids who struggled like Jack had. Jack's home life had been rough. His dad left when he was 10, and his mom worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. Jack had been angry and lost as a teenager. Laura was the one who helped him focus on school. She tutored him in math when he was failing. She convinced him to join the computer club where he discovered his love for programming. She believed in him when nobody else did. The summer after graduation, they had made big plans while sitting on her front porch. Laura would go to college to become a teacher. Jack would study computer science. They promised to stay in touch, to always be there for each other. But life happened. Jack went to college on the other side of the country. Phone calls became less frequent. Emails got shorter. Eventually, they lost touch completely. And now, here she was, serving tables at a fancy restaurant while he sat there as a billionaire. The woman turned, and Jack saw her name tag. Laura B. It was her. No doubt about it. Jack watched as Laura moved between tables. She smiled at customers, but he could see she was tired. She winced slightly when carrying heavy trays, favoring her right leg. But she worked quickly and efficiently, never stopping to rest. A different server approached Jack's table. "Good evening, sir. Can I get you something to drink while you wait for your party?" "Actually," Jack said, "I was hoping to have Laura as my server tonight." He pointed discreetly. The server looked surprised but nodded. "Of course, sir, I'll let her know." Jack's heart pounded as he waited. What would he say to her? Would she even remember him? They had once shared everything, hopes, fears, dreams, secrets. Now they were strangers. A few minutes later, Laura approached his table. She held a small notepad and pen, her professional smile firmly in place. "Good evening, sir. I'll be your server tonight. Can I start you off with something to drink?" She asked politely, not showing any sign of recognition. Jack looked up at her, suddenly feeling like that awkward 17-year-old boy again. Up close, he could see that life had been harder on Laura than it had been on him. Fine lines marked her face. Her hands were slightly rough from work, but her eyes, those warm brown eyes, were still the same. "Laura Bennett?" Jack said softly. "It's me, Jack. Jack Miller." Laura froze. Her professional mask slipped for just a moment as she studied his face. Confusion, then shock spread across her features. "Jack?" she whispered. "From Westfield? Is that really you?" He nodded, smiling. "It's been a long time." Laura seemed to struggle for words. Her eyes darted around the restaurant, clearly aware that she was at work and shouldn't be chatting. Wow. I don't know what to say. You look different." Jack laughed softly. "Money will do that. Plus some good stylists and probably too many hours at the gym. I heard you were successful, but..." Laura gestured vaguely at him, taking in his expensive suit and the way the restaurant staff had treated him like royalty. "This is something else," a voice called from across the restaurant. "Bennett, table 12 needs their check." Laura jumped slightly. "I'm sorry, I have to. I'm working." "Of course," Jack said quickly. "I'm having dinner with some potential investors. They're running late." "You're the Horizon Technologies guy," Laura said, realization dawning. "I read about you in a magazine once. I always wondered if it was the same Jack Miller I knew." "The one and only," Jack replied with a small smile. "Listen, when do you get off work? Maybe we could catch up?" Laura hesitated, glancing at her watch. "I finish at 11. Jack nodded. "My dinner should be done by then. There's a coffee shop around the corner that stays open late. Maybe we could..." "Bennett!" The same voice called again, more insistent this time. "I really need to go," Laura said, looking anxious. "I'll take your drink order first, though." "Just water for now," Jack said. "And Laura, it's really good to see you." She gave him a quick, genuine smile before hurrying off to her other tables. Jack watched her go, his mind spinning with questions. What had happened to Laura's teaching dreams? Why was she working here? What had her life been like all these years? The distance between their current situations felt massive and wrong. His phone buzzed again. His dinner guests had arrived and were being shown to the table. Jack straightened his tie and put on his business face. But as he stood to greet the investors, his mind wasn't on the millions of dollars they might put into his company. Instead, he was thinking about the teenager with big dreams who had once saved him, and wondering if maybe, just maybe, it was his turn to save her. Jack's business dinner lasted nearly 3 hours. He talked about market trends and investment opportunities, but his mind kept drifting to Laura. He watched her from the corner of his eye as she moved between tables, carrying plates and refilling drinks. She was good at her job, efficient, polite, and nearly invisible to the wealthy diners who barely looked up when she served them. At 10:30, Jack wrapped up the dinner. The 4 investors seemed impressed with his pitch and promised to have their teams look over his proposal. They shook hands and left, while Jack settled the bill with his platinum credit card. "Would you like me to call your car, Mr. Miller?" the restaurant manager asked. "Not yet," Jack replied. "I'm going to stay a bit longer." He ordered a coffee and waited. The restaurant began to empty as closing time approached. Staff cleaned tables and reset them for tomorrow. Jack checked his watch, 10:55 p.m. He felt oddly nervous, like a teenager waiting for a date. At 11, Laura emerged from the back room. She had changed out of her uniform into jeans and a simple blue sweater. Her hair was down now, falling just past her shoulders. She looked tired but spotted Jack and walked over to his table. "You're still here," she said, sounding surprised. Jack stood up. "I said I would be. Is that coffee shop still an option?" Laura nodded. It's just around the corner. They're open until midnight. They walked out of the restaurant together. The night was cool, and Laura pulled a worn jacket tighter around herself. Jack felt the weight of 27 years of silence between them as they walked side by side down the quiet street. The coffee shop was small and cozy, with soft lighting and comfortable chairs. Only a few other customers sat inside, typing, on laptops or reading books. Jack and Laura found a quiet corner and sat down. "So," Laura said after they ordered, "Horizon Technologies, you actually did it." Jack smiled. "You remember that?" "Of course," Laura replied. "You talked about starting your own tech company someday. You had it all planned out in that notebook you carried everywhere." Jack was touched that she remembered such a detail. "I didn't exactly follow that original plan, but yes, I started Horizon about 20 years ago. We make business software now, but we're expanding into artificial intelligence and clean energy." "And you're a billionaire," Laura stated simply. Jack shifted uncomfortably. The money was never the point. "No, it wasn't," Laura agreed. "You wanted to build something that mattered, that's what you always said." The server brought their coffees. Laura wrapped her hands around the warm mug like she was cold. "What about you?" Jack asked gently. "You wanted to be a teacher. What happened?" Laura took a sip of her coffee before answering. "I started on that path. Got a scholarship to State University. I was 3 years into my education degree when my dad got sick." "Oh no," Jack said. "Frank was such a good guy." He remembered Laura's father, a kind, hard-working man who had always welcomed Jack into their home. Laura nodded. "He had a massive stroke. Mom had already passed, so there was no one else to care for him. I had to drop out of school and move back home." "I'm so sorry," Jack said. "I had no idea." "How could you?" Laura shrugged. "We'd already lost touch by then." Jack felt a pang of guilt. After high school, he had thrown himself into his new life, eager to escape his troubled past. He'd meant to stay in contact with Laura, but days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and eventually he convinced himself it was too late. "Dad lived for 8 more years," Laura continued. "I worked whatever jobs I could find while taking care of him. Medical bills piled up. I married young. His name was Steve. But the stress of caring for Dad and our money problems was too much. We divorced after 3 years." "And after your father passed?" Jack asked. "I was already deep in debt," Laura explained. "I tried to go back to school, but I couldn't afford it. Then 3 years ago I was in a car accident. Messed up my hip pretty badly." She gestured to her right leg. "More medical bills, more debt. And here we are." Jack felt a heaviness in his chest. While he had been building his empire, flying in private jets and buying vacation homes, Laura had been struggling just to survive. "I work as a teacher's aide at an elementary school during the day," Laura added, her face brightening slightly. "The pay isn't great, but I love working with the kids. Then I serve tables at night." "2 jobs?" Jack asked. "That's a lot, especially with your hip." Laura shrugged again. "It's what I have to do. The medical bills aren't going to pay themselves." Jack thought about the meeting he'd just had. Investors casually discussing putting millions into his company. The contrast was jarring. "What about you?" Laura asked, changing the subject. "Married? Kids?" Jack shook his head. "Neither. Came close once or twice, but the business always came first. Now," he trailed off. "Now I'm just the rich guy everyone wants something from." Laura studied him. "You don't seem happy about it." "Don't get me wrong," Jack said quickly. "I'm proud of what I've built, but sometimes I wonder what it's all for, you know? All this money and no one to share it with. No real purpose beyond making more money." Laura smiled softly. "That sounds like the Jack I knew, always looking for meaning." They fell into easier conversation then, sharing memories of their high school days. They laughed about strict teachers, embarrassing moments, and the terrible cafeteria food. For a little while, the years between them seemed to vanish. "Remember when you punched Darren Cooper for calling me poor trash?" Jack asked, grinning at the memory. Laura laughed. And got suspended for 3 days. My dad was so mad, but he also told me later he was proud I stood up for my friend. You were always doing that, Jack said more seriously. Standing up for me, believing in me. I don't think I ever thanked you properly for that. Laura waved her hand dismissively. You would have done the same for me. Would I? Jack wondered aloud. I'm not so sure. You were the strong one. The coffee shop owner came over to tell them they were closing in 5 minutes. Jack was surprised to see it was already midnight. Their conversation had flown by. Outside, the night had grown colder. Jack called his driver while Laura waited beside him. Where are you staying? She asked. The Four Seasons, Jack replied, then felt awkward about mentioning the luxury hotel. Laura nodded. I'm taking the subway to my apartment. It's about 40 minutes from here. Let me drive you home, Jack offered immediately. Laura shook her head. It's way out of your way. I insist, Jack said. Please. After a moment's hesitation, Laura agreed. When the sleek black car arrived, the driver jumped out to open the doors for them. Laura looked uncomfortable with the treatment but slid into the back seat. As they drove through the quiet streets of Boston, Jack made a decision. The universe had given him this second chance to reconnect with Laura for a reason. He couldn't change the past 27 years, but maybe he could help change her future. What if you could go back to school? He asked suddenly. Finish your teaching degree? Laura looked over at him. That's a nice dream, but I have bills to pay. What if money wasn't an issue? Jack pressed. Laura's eyes narrowed. Jack, if you're offering me charity— Not charity, Jack interrupted. An investment. In someone who once invested in me when I had nothing. The car stopped in front of a small apartment building in a modest neighborhood. Laura didn't move to get out. I need to think about this, she said finally. It's been 27 years, Jack. You can't just drop back into my life and try to fix everything. Jack nodded. Fair enough. I'm in town until Friday. Here's my card with my personal number. Think about it, that's all I ask. Laura took the card and got out of the car. Before closing the door, she leaned down and looked at him one last time. It really was good to see you, Jack, she said with a genuine smile. You too, Laura, he replied. More than you know. As the car pulled away, Jack looked back to see Laura watching from the sidewalk. For the first time in years, he felt truly awake. His mind raced with ideas, with possibility, with purpose. By the time he reached his hotel, a plan was already forming. Jack didn't sleep well that night. He tossed and turned in his luxury hotel bed thinking about Laura. The unfairness of it all bothered him deeply. Laura had been the smart one, the kind one, the one who deserved success. Yet here she was, working 2 jobs and struggling with debt while he had more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. At 5 a.m., Jack gave up on sleep. He sat at the desk in his hotel suite and opened his laptop. He began to research, making notes and sending emails. By the time the sun came up, he had the beginnings of a plan. Jack called his assistant. Cancel my meetings for today. Something important has come up. His first stop was Westbrook Academy, a prestigious private school where he sat on the board of directors. The head of school, Dr. Reed, welcomed him warmly. Jack, what a surprise. We weren't expecting you. I'm here about a potential new program, Jack explained. Something that could help both the school and the community. For the next hour, Jack outlined his idea. Westbrook Academy would create a scholarship program for students from disadvantaged backgrounds. But more than that, they would also create teaching positions specifically for educators who had overcome similar challenges. These students need teachers who understand their struggles firsthand, Jack explained. And I have someone in mind to help launch the program. Dr. Reed looked intrigued. You know we're always looking for qualified teachers, especially those who can connect with our scholarship students. She's not fully qualified yet, Jack admitted. She needs to complete her degree, but she has experience as a teacher's aide and a natural gift for mentoring. By the end of the meeting, Dr. Reed had agreed to Jack's proposal. The school would create a position for Laura, pending completion of her education degree. Jack would personally fund the new scholarship program, with a starting donation of $5 million. Next, Jack visited the education department at Boston University. He met with the dean and explained the situation without mentioning Laura's name. "I'd like to create a scholarship for adults who had to abandon their education due to family hardships," Jack said. "Full tuition, plus a living stipend to allow them to focus on their studies." The dean was enthusiastic. "This kind of second-chance scholarship is exactly what many deserving students need. We'd be honored to partner with you." By lunchtime, Jack had established the Second Chance Scholarship with a $10 million endowment. The scholarship would cover not just Laura, but 5 other students each year who had similar stories. His final stop was to see Dr. Samantha Wong, one of the top orthopedic surgeons in the country. Jack had invested in her medical technology startup years earlier, helping her develop breakthrough treatments for joint injuries. "Jack, it's been too long," Dr. Wong said, greeting him with a warm handshake. "What brings you to Boston?" Jack explained about Laura's hip injury and the chronic pain she lived with. "I was hoping you might be able to see her, at least give her a second opinion." Dr. Wong nodded. "Of course, send her my way, and I'll take good care of her." By late afternoon, Jack had put all the pieces in place. He returned to his hotel room and prepared for his final meeting of the day. He had invited Laura to dinner at a casual restaurant, not the Oak Room where she worked, but a comfortable place where they could talk freely. Jack arrived early and waited nervously. He wasn't used to feeling unsure of himself. In business, he was always confident, always in control. But this was different. This mattered more than any business deal. Laura arrived at exactly 7 o'clock. She wore a simple dress and looked like she had taken extra care with her appearance. Jack stood to greet her. "Thanks for coming," he said. Laura smiled slightly. "I almost didn't, but I was curious about what you had to say." They ordered food and made small talk while waiting for their meals. Jack asked about Laura's work at the elementary school, and her face lit up as she talked about her students. "There's this one boy, Sam," she said. "He reminds me of you, actually. Bright but troubled. Home life is a mess. But he has so much potential." "You always could see potential in people," Jack said. "You saw it in me when no one else did." Their food arrived and Jack took a deep breath. It was time to share his plan. "Laura, I've been thinking about what you said last night, about wanting to finish your degree but not being able to afford it." Laura put down her fork. "Jack, please just hear me out," Jack said quickly. "This isn't charity. I've set up a scholarship program at Boston University for people who had to leave school due to family obligations. You'd be perfect for it. Full tuition plus a living stipend so you wouldn't have to work while studying." Laura looked suspicious. "And this program just happened to start the day after we met?" Jack smiled sheepishly. "Yes, but it's not just for you. There will be 5 scholarships available each year." "And what's the catch?" Laura asked. "After graduation, you'd work at Westbrook Academy for 5 years, Jack explained. Teaching and mentoring students from backgrounds similar to mine. Kids who need someone like you to believe in them." Laura was quiet for a long moment. "Westbrook? Isn't that where all the rich kids go?" "Some, yes," Jack admitted. "But we're expanding our scholarship program. These kids will come from all backgrounds. Many will be the first in their families to go to college, just like I was." Laura took a sip of her water, thinking. "And what about my medical bills? My rent? My hip that makes it hard to stand all day?" Jack slid a folder across the table. "It's all in here. The scholarship covers health insurance, and I've arranged for you to see Dr. Samantha Wong about your hip. She's pioneered some new treatments that might help." Laura didn't touch the folder. "Why are you doing this, Jack? We haven't seen each other in 27 years. You don't owe me anything." Jack leaned forward. "Do you remember that day in 11th grade? When I showed up at your house in the middle of the night because my mom's boyfriend had kicked me out?" Laura nodded. "Of course. Your dad let me stay in your garage apartment for 3 months," Jack continued. "You helped me with homework every night. You made sure I didn't drop out." "That's what friends do," Laura said simply. Exactly, Jack agreed. And now I have a chance to help my friend, to repay a debt that I've carried for almost 30 years. Laura finally picked up the folder and opened it. She read through the document slowly, her expression unreadable. This is a lot to take in, she said finally. I know, Jack replied. And I'm not asking for an answer tonight. Take the folder home. Think about it. Talk to Dr. Wong. Visit the University and Westbrook Academy if you want. This has to be your decision. Laura closed the folder. What if I say no? Jack smiled sadly. Then I'll respect your choice. The scholarship program will still help other students. And I'll still consider myself lucky to have reconnected with an old friend. They finished their meal talking about lighter topics. As they walked out of the restaurant, Laura turned to Jack. I have a lot to think about, she said. But thank you, even if I don't accept. Thank you for believing in me after all these years. Jack watched her walk away, hoping he had done enough. Not just to help Laura, but to create something meaningful with his wealth. For the first time in years, he felt like he was using his money for something that truly mattered. Back in his hotel room, Jack couldn't focus on work. He kept checking his phone, even though he knew Laura needed time to consider his offer. Whatever, she decided. Jack knew one thing for certain. Meeting Laura again had changed something in him. It had reminded him of who he used to be and the values he once held dear. The boy who had nothing had become a man who had everything. Yet somehow, he had lost something essential along the way. Now he had a chance to find it again. 2 days passed with no word from Laura. Jack tried to focus on his business meetings, but his mind kept drifting. He wondered if he had pushed too hard or offered too much too quickly. Maybe she felt insulted by his help. Or maybe she simply didn't want to upend her life based on an old friendship that had been dead for nearly 3 decades. On his 3rd day in Boston, Jack had a meeting with his company's local office. He gave a speech about innovation and growth that he had given dozens of times before. The employees clapped politely, but Jack felt empty inside. The words that once excited him now felt hollow. That evening, he returned to his hotel and found a message waiting for him. Laura had called the front desk and left her phone number with a request for him to call her back. Jack's heart raced as he dialed. Laura picked up on the 3rd ring. Hello? Her voice sounded tired. Laura, it's Jack. I got your message. There was a pause before she spoke again. I went to see Dr. Wong yesterday. Jack waited, not wanting to push. She thinks she can help me, Laura continued. She showed me scans of my hip and explained why I'm still in pain. There's a new procedure she's developed that might fix it. That's great news, Jack said cautiously, still not sure where this conversation was heading. I also visited Boston University, Laura added. They told me about the second chance scholarship. They said I could start classes next semester and finish my degree in about a year. Another pause. Jack could hear Laura taking a deep breath. And I drove by Westbrook Academy, she said. It's a beautiful campus. It is, Jack agreed. The students there are lucky. Jack, Laura said finally, what you're offering is incredible, life-changing. But I need to understand why. Is this about easing your guilt for losing touch? Is it about showing off your wealth? What do you get out of this? Jack had anticipated this question. He had asked himself the same thing. Do you remember what you told me the day I got accepted to college? Jack asked. We were sitting on your front porch, and I was scared about moving across the country. I told you a lot of things back then, Laura said. You told me that we were both meant for something important, Jack said softly, that we had a responsibility to use our talents to make the world better. You made me promise that when I succeeded, I would help others the way your family helped me. Jack paused, gathering his thoughts. I kept the first part of that promise. I built something successful, but somewhere along the way I forgot about the second part. I got caught up in making money and forgot why I was doing it in the first place. He could hear Laura breathing on the other end of the line. When I saw you at the restaurant, Jack continued, it was like the universe was giving me a wake-up call, a chance to remember who I used to be and what really matters. So to answer your question, I get the chance to keep a promise I made 27 years ago. To use my success for something meaningful. There was silence on the line. Jack waited, his heart pounding. I still have questions, Laura said finally. Practical questions about how all this would work. Ask me anything, Jack replied, feeling a surge of hope. If I accept the scholarship and the job at Westbrook, when would I start? What would I do about my apartment? My current jobs? There are people depending on me at the elementary school. Jack had thought about these details too. You could start classes in January. That gives you 2 months to wrap things up at your current jobs. As for your apartment, you could keep it, or I could help you find something closer to campus. And the medical bills I already have, the credit card debt. The scholarship includes a stipend for living expenses, Jack explained. But if you want to clear your debt before starting fresh, we can figure that out too. Laura was quiet again, thinking. I visited the elementary school today, told my supervisor I might be leaving. It was harder than I expected. Change always is, Jack said gently. The thing is, Laura continued, she was happy for me. Said I've been underutilized for years, that I should be running my own classroom. She laughed softly. She even asked if they might be able to hire me after I graduate. Jack smiled even though Laura couldn't see him. You should keep that option open. The agreement with Westbrook is for 5 years, but after that you can teach wherever you want. Jack, Laura said, her voice suddenly serious. I need you to understand something. If I do this, I'm not doing it because I owe you or because I'm grateful. I'm doing it for me and for the students I'll be able to help. I wouldn't want it any other way, Jack replied. And I won't be reporting to you, Laura added firmly. You won't be my boss just because you created this opportunity. Absolutely not, Jack agreed. Once you're at Westbrook, you'll answer to Dr. Reed like any other teacher. Laura took another deep breath. Okay then, I've made my decision. Jack held his breath. I'll do it, Laura said. I'll accept the scholarship and the job at Westbrook, and Dr. Wong's treatment for my hip. Joy surged through Jack. Laura, that's wonderful. You won't regret this. I hope not, she said, but he could hear a smile in her voice. Because I just gave notice at the restaurant, tonight was my last shift. Jack laughed. You decided before you called me, didn't you? Maybe, Laura admitted. But I needed to hear you say it wasn't about charity or guilt, that it was about keeping a promise. It is, Jack assured her. For both of us. They talked for another hour, working out details and making plans. Laura would finish her current term at the elementary school. In January, she would start classes at Boston University. Dr. Wong would schedule her hip procedure during winter break, giving Laura time to recover before the semester began. When they finally said goodbye, Jack felt lighter than he had in years. He opened his laptop and began typing an email to his board of directors. It was time for Horizon Technologies to expand its charitable foundation. The Second Chance Scholarship was just the beginning. The next morning, Jack met Laura for breakfast, before his flight back to New York. She looked different already. There was a spark in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Hope had a way of transforming people. I still can't believe this is happening, Laura said as they sat down. Yesterday I was serving breakfast to rich people. Today I'm having breakfast with a billionaire who's funding my future. Jack smiled. You know, when I started Horizon, my goal was to change the way businesses operate. I never imagined I'd be able to change someone's life. You're not just changing my life, Laura pointed out. Think about all the students I'll teach over the next 20 years. You're changing their lives too. Jack hadn't thought about it that way. The ripple effect of one opportunity could touch hundreds, maybe thousands of lives. I have something for you, Jack said, pulling a small box from his pocket. A graduation gift a bit early. Laura opened the box to find a silver pendant in the shape of a key. It's beautiful, she said, lifting it out. But what does it mean? It's a reminder, Jack explained. That education is the key that opens doors. That's what you taught me all those years ago. Laura's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. As they finished their meal, Jack realized something important. In trying to help Laura, he had found a new purpose for himself. His wealth could do more than build bigger buildings or buy fancier cars. It could create opportunities for people who deserved them. "When you graduate," Jack said as they parted ways, "I'll be there. Front row." Laura hugged him tightly. "I'm holding you to that promise." Jack watched her walk away, standing taller than she had at the restaurant, moving with new energy despite her limp. Tomorrow, he would return to his company with fresh ideas and a renewed sense of purpose. But for now, he was simply grateful that a chance encounter had led to something extraordinary. 3 years passed quickly. Jack and Laura stayed in touch through it all. He called her once a week to check on her progress, and she sent him updates about her classes and her recovery from hip surgery. Dr. Wong's procedure had worked better than expected. Laura still had a slight limp, but the constant pain was gone. She could stand all day in a classroom without wincing. On a bright May morning, Jack's private jet landed in Boston. He had cleared his schedule for the weekend to attend Laura's graduation ceremony at Boston University. As his car drove him from the airport to his hotel, Jack thought about how much had changed since that chance meeting at the Oak Room restaurant. For Laura, everything was different. She had completed her education degree with honors. Her medical debts were paid off. Next fall, she would start teaching at Westbrook Academy, working with scholarship students from backgrounds similar to Jack's childhood. She had even helped interview the next group of second-chance scholarship recipients, offering guidance based on her own experience. But Jack had changed too. After helping Laura, he had transformed Horizon Technologies' approach to charity. Instead of just writing checks to popular causes, the company now focused on creating educational opportunities. Jack had established scholarship programs at 5 universities across the country. He had also started visiting high schools in poor neighborhoods, sharing his story and offering mentorship to promising students. Jack's phone rang as he arrived at his hotel. It was Laura. "Are you here?" she asked excitedly. "Just got to the hotel," Jack replied. "How are you feeling about tomorrow?" "Nervous, happy, proud," Laura said. "Everything at once." Jack smiled. "You should be proud. Graduating with honors isn't easy, especially after being away from school for so long." "I couldn't have done it without you," Laura said softly. "We both know that's not true," Jack countered. "You did all the hard work. I just opened a door." "Well, I have a surprise for you," Laura said, changing the subject. "Can you meet me at Westbrook Academy in 2 hours? Main entrance?" Jack was intrigued. "Of course, should I dress up?" "No, casual is fine. See you there." Laura hung up before Jack could ask more questions. 2 hours later, Jack's car pulled up to Westbrook Academy. The campus was beautiful, with old brick buildings and green lawns. Students in uniforms walked between classes, carrying books and laughing together. Jack spotted Laura waiting for him at the entrance. She wore a simple, blue dress and the key pendant he had given her 3 years ago. "Right on time," Laura said, greeting him with a hug. "Come with me." She led him through the campus to a new building at the far end. A sign above the door read, "Bennett Miller Center for Educational Opportunity." Jack stopped, surprised. "Bennett Miller?" Laura smiled. "That's part of the surprise. The board voted to name it after both of us. This building will house the expanded scholarship program and serve as a center for first-generation college-bound students." Jack was speechless. He had donated money for the new building, but he hadn't expected this recognition, especially shared with Laura. "They shouldn't have put my name on it," he said finally. "I just wrote a check." "It was more than that, and you know it," Laura said firmly. "This whole program was your idea. You're the one who convinced the board that Westbrook needed to be more inclusive." She led him inside. The building was modern and bright, with large windows and comfortable spaces for students to gather and study. "But that's not the real surprise," Laura continued, leading him to a large classroom at the end of the hall. "This is." She opened the door to reveal 30 teenagers sitting at desks. They looked up as Jack and Laura entered. "Everyone," Laura announced, "This is Mr. Miller, the person I've been telling you about." A girl in the front row stood up. "Hi, Mr. Miller, I'm Zoe. We're the first group of summer program students. We all come from neighborhoods like yours." Jack looked at the students with amazement. They were from all backgrounds: Black, Hispanic, Asian, white. But they shared the same hopeful, determined expressions. "Ms. Bennett has been showing us how to prepare for college," a boy near the back said. "None of us thought we could go to a place like Westbrook before." "And now?" Jack asked. "Now we know we can," Zoe answered confidently. "If we work hard enough." Another student raised his hand. "Ms. Bennett told us how you grew up poor but built a big company. Is it true you lived in your car for a while?" Jack shot Laura a look and she shrugged innocently. "Yes, that's true," Jack admitted. "For about 3 months during college, I couldn't afford both tuition and rent." "See?" Laura said to the class. "Success isn't about where you start. It's about persistence and believing in yourself." The students had prepared questions for Jack, and he spent the next hour telling them his story and answering them honestly. He talked about his struggles growing up poor, about working multiple jobs to pay for college, and about the failures he experienced before Horizon Technologies succeeded. As he spoke, Jack realized something important. These kids didn't just need his money. They needed to see someone like them who had overcome similar obstacles. His story gave them hope that they could succeed too. When the class ended, the students thanked Jack and filed out of the room. Laura stayed behind, watching Jack with a smile. "That was the real surprise," she said. "I wanted you to meet them, to see what your money is actually doing." Jack was deeply moved. "They're amazing kids." "They are," Laura agreed. "And next year I'll be teaching some of them full-time. 10 of these students have been accepted to Westbrook on scholarships for the fall." Jack looked around the empty classroom, trying to process his emotions. "When I saw you at that restaurant 3 years ago, I had no idea it would lead to this." "Neither did I," Laura admitted. "I thought you were just offering me charity. But it was so much more." They walked outside into the sunny afternoon. Campus was quiet now, with most students gone for the day. "Remember what I told you when we were 17? Laura asked. "About how we were both meant for something important?" Jack nodded. "You said we had a responsibility to use our talents to make the world better." "Look what we've done," Laura said, gesturing to the building behind them. "You used your business skills to create opportunities. I'll use my teaching skills to help. These kids, together, we're changing lives." The next day, Jack sat in the front row at Laura's graduation ceremony. When her name was called, he stood and cheered louder than anyone. Laura crossed the stage with confidence, no trace of a limp in her walk. She accepted her diploma with tears in her eyes, then looked directly at Jack and touched the key pendant around her neck. After the ceremony, they took pictures together. Laura introduced Jack to her classmates and professors as my oldest friend, who believed in me. Later, at a small celebration dinner, Laura raised her glass in a toast. "To second chances," she said. "To second chances," Jack repeated. "And to keeping promises." As they ate and talked about the future, Jack felt a contentment he had never experienced before. His money had finally found its purpose. By helping Laura, he had rediscovered what truly mattered to him. And through their combined efforts, dozens of students, soon to be hundreds, would have opportunities they never thought possible. What had started as a chance encounter between a billionaire and a server had become something neither of them could have imagined, a partnership that would change countless lives for generations to come.